This is a story sent to us by a friend from Russia. He said, "This isn't just an ordinary horror tale, but a real experience lived by a young man in a remote village. If you're Russian, does this story sound familiar to you? Or maybe you've heard the whispers, the rumors about Lake Chernoye, and the creature that's said to live beneath its surface." This story takes place in a small village, deep in the Russian countryside, near a lake known as Chernoye, or the Black Lake. The village is far from civilization, surrounded by dense, shadowy forests that seem to breathe mystery. The air there is always cold, even in the height of summer, as if nature itself refuses to let warmth stay. Lake Chernoye is the heart of every terrifying tale that haunts this village. Its waters are pitch black, as if soaked in ink, and its surface is eerily still, almost as though something beneath is holding it down. The villagers believe the lake is cursed. They speak of how every night, screams and cries echo from its direction, sometimes faint, sometimes loud, like someone is suffering in unimaginable pain. But the most terrifying thing is the disappearances, especially of young men, those foolish enough to approach the lake. They leave for all sorts of reasons, to fish, to satisfy their curiosity, or to prove they're not afraid. But one thing is always the same. They never come back. Their bodies are never found. It's as if the lake swallows them whole, without a single trace. The villagers do their best to stay away, but sometimes curiosity or plain misfortune leads someone to break the unspoken rule. And when that happens, the screams return, echoing through the night, a chilling reminder that the curse of Lake Chernoye is still alive and still hungry. Dmitry was a 25-year-old man from a big city in Russia. He came to this remote village to visit his grandmother, an elderly woman who had been living alone in an old wooden house at the edge of the forest. Dmitry was a practical man, a skeptic. To him, all the mystical stories whispered among the villagers were nothing more than old superstitions, leftovers from a time that should have been forgotten in this modern world. That night, Dmitry spent his time at the village's small tavern, drinking with a few of the local young men. Vodka flowed freely, and the room echoed with laughter. Drunk and emboldened, Dmitry began mocking their fear of Lake Chernoye. "You really believe there's a ghost in that lake?" he laughed, eyes glassy from the alcohol. "I'll go there right now, and you'll see. There's nothing there." His friends exchanged nervous glances, their faces pale. "Don't, Dmitry," one of them said, his voice trembling. "It's not a joke. People have gone there and never come back." But Dmitry only laughed louder. "Village nonsense," he shouted, stumbling to his feet. "I'll prove you're all just cowards." Without waiting for a response, Dmitry grabbed his jacket and stepped out of the tavern, heading straight toward Lake Chernoye. The night wind was cold, but the alcohol in his veins made him numb to it. His steps were unsteady, but his determination, or perhaps his foolishness, kept pushing him forward. None of his friends dared to follow. They could only watch from a distance, silently hoping he'd come to his senses and turn back. But Dmitry had no intention of turning back. In his hazy mind, this was nothing more than a little adventure, something to laugh about in the morning, What he didn't know was that tonight would be the last night he would ever be the Dmitry they knew. As Dmitry approached Lake Chernoye, the air, already cold, grew bone-chilling. It was summer, and yet the night felt unnaturally cold. His breath came out in white clouds, and the hair on his arms stood on end, as if nature itself was warning him to turn back. The sound of crickets and the usual nighttime creatures suddenly stopped. The forest, once alive with the rustling of leaves and the whisper of the wind, fell completely silent. A silence so deep it pressed against his ears like a weight. Dmitry paused, glancing around. His heart began to race, but the alcohol still dulled his senses, just enough to keep the fear at bay. He kept walking, drawing closer to the edge of the lake. Suddenly a thick fog began to rise, slowly engulfing the surface of the pitch-black water. It moved with purpose, almost like a living thing. Within seconds, Dmitry could barely see more than a few feet ahead. Then he saw it, a shadow, flickering within the mist. It was faint but real. It floated just above the water, and it was moving toward him. Dmitry froze. The alcohol that once gave him courage vanished in an instant. He wanted to run, but his feet refused to move, as if the ground itself was holding him in place. Then he heard it, a soft hissing sound, barely louder than a whisper, and within it, a voice.
Dmitry.
It was quiet, almost inaudible, but clear enough to freeze the blood in his veins. In the midst of that crushing silence, Dmitry heard singing. The voice was beautiful, enchanting. It called to him, gently, sweetly, almost like it knew his name. The melody drifted through the night air, weaving its way through the heavy fog that clung to the lake. Each note pierced straight into his mind, pulling at him. Like a magnet he could not resist. Dmitry turned slowly, his eyes scanning the mist, searching for the source of that haunting song. At the edge of the lake, just beyond the shifting fog, he saw her. A woman, standing gracefully, barely moving. Her long jet-black hair hung wet and heavy, dripping onto the ground beneath her feet. A thin, soaked white dress clung tightly to her body, revealing every delicate curve in the moonlight. Her eyes shimmered like gemstones catching a cold, pale light. But the glow they cast was not warm. It was icy, a light that pierced, not comforted. She smiled. Her lips, red and full, bloomed like a flower in the dark. It was a sweet smile, but there was something wrong about it. Something that twisted deep in Dmitry's gut, screaming at him to run. But his body didn't listen. His legs moved on their own, carrying him forward, drawn to her by a force he couldn't see and couldn't fight.
Come closer,
she whispered. Her voice rustled through the air like leaves in a midnight breeze. Dmitry couldn't resist. Each step brought him closer, closer to her, even as his heart pounded in protest, even as a small voice inside his head screamed, "Stop!" She reached out her hand, long, pale fingers extended toward him, inviting him into her arms. Behind her, the lake began to stir. Its dark surface rippled slowly, as if the water itself was waking up. But the ripples weren't natural. They moved with purpose, like the lake was alive, and she was its keeper. Dmitry was too close now. He could see the droplets falling from her soaked hair, smell the damp, rotting scent of moss and earth clinging to her skin. But he couldn't stop. Her smile was too sweet, her voice too beautiful, and her eyes too mesmerizing to resist. He took another step, then another, until the space between them vanished. She opened her arms, ready to embrace him, and that's when Dmitry felt it, a jolt deep in his gut, a cold, instinctive dread. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. But it was already too late. Just as Dmitry was about to touch her hand, she vanished. Her form dissolved into the air as if swallowed by the trembling waves of heat. The world around him rippled, distorted like a dream turning into a nightmare. Dmitry froze. His eyes widened, his breath hitched, and his heart pounded like a drum, wild and desperate in the silence that followed. But before he could react, she appeared again, this time in the middle of the lake, floating. Her body hovered above the pitch-black water, not a single ripple beneath her, as if she weighed nothing at all. As if the lake itself was holding her, or worshipping her. Suddenly, Dmitry felt something pulling him. It was as if hundreds of invisible hands were grabbing at him from every direction. He tried to run, but his legs felt heavy, like they were caught in roots growing from the earth itself. Every step became a struggle, as if he were wading through thick, clinging mud, dragging him closer and closer to the edge of the lake. She changed. The woman began to change. Her smooth porcelain skin turned sickly greenish white, like a corpse left underwater for far too long. Her flesh rotted before his eyes, peeling away, releasing a stench so foul it burned his throat. Her hair twisted and writhed, no longer human, but like living strands of lake weed or serpents slithering in slow motion. The glow in her eyes vanished, replaced by deep black pits, endless voids that swallowed light itself. And then, her mouth opened. Far too wide to be human. From deep inside her throat came a shriek, a chilling, inhuman wail, a twisted harmony of crying and moaning, as if it echoed from the souls of the damned. Her teeth gleamed, sharp, jagged, glistening under the moonlight. Predator's teeth, ready to tear. She was no longer the beautiful woman he saw. She was a Rusalka, a creature from nightmares, a deceiver, a devourer, one who had claimed many before him. Now she danced upon the lake, beckoning Dmitry into the black depths of Chernoye. And Dmitry knew he would not escape. Dmitry fought back. His hands clawed desperately at the earth, fingers digging into cold, damp soil. But it was useless. The force pulling him was immense, like the invisible coils of a giant serpent wrapping around his limbs, dragging him closer inch by inch. His muscles strained, veins bulging, heart pounding like war drums. But nothing stopped it. His foot slipped, then the other, and he plunged into the water, into that black, freezing void. The lake swallowed his legs first. The cold was unnatural. It wasn't just temperature. It felt alive. The kind of cold that gnaws through skin, slithers into your bones, and whispers that you've been claimed. As his body sank deeper, the world above faded, swallowed by a suffocating darkness that pulsed like a living thing. Then he saw them. Faces, dozens of them, rising from the depths like a forgotten chorus of the damned. Pale, bloated, rotting, their skin peeling in ribbons, their mouths stretched wide in eternal soundless screams. Eyes like shattered glass, empty but watching. They circled him slowly, not swimming, drifting like they were suspended in thick sorrow. Their presence pressed on him, cold and heavy, sinking into his soul like water in lungs. They were the lost, the cursed, those who answered the same song. And now they welcomed him, not with words, but with the silent promise, "You are one of us now." The Rusalka floated closer, her presence like a cold breeze that sliced through flesh and bone. Her fingers, wet, pale, and unnaturally long, touched Dmitry's cheek. Cold, burning, both at once. Dmitry gasped, choking, his vision blurred. Darkness crept in. He opened his mouth to scream, but only bubbles escaped, spiraling upward into the void. No one would hear him. From the depths, faces began to appear, pale, broken, twisted in eternal agony. They encircled him like silent mourners at a funeral without light or hope. The Rusalka smiled, a terrible, hollow smile. Then, with inhuman grace, she pulled him deeper, down, into the belly of Lake Chernoye, where the cold was absolute, where no scream could rise, and no soul ever returned. The lake's surface calmed, still, silent, as if nothing had happened. But far below, in the pitch black, among the trapped souls, a new face now watched, eyes empty, lips frozen in a scream. Waiting, waiting, for the next one who dares to listen to the whispers of cursed Lake Chernoye. Dmitry screamed with every ounce of strength he had, his voice cracking, raw with terror. "Help me!" He cried out, but his voice vanished into the thick darkness of the night, swallowed by the cold, dead waters of the lake. No one heard. No one came. Only the Rusalka stared at him, her eyes black and bottomless, like pits of hell, ready to consume him whole. His body sank, inch by inch, dragged down by the cold, murky water. He reached upward, fingers stretching toward the surface, desperate, panicked. But unseen hands gripped him, pulling, clutching, refusing to let go. As if the lake itself had claimed him, forever. The Rusalka laughed. A horrifying sound. A twisted mix of screams and sobs ripping through the silence of the night. Her laughter echoed across the lake, haunting, inhuman. It wasn't just a sound. It was a victory cry. And the lake, as if alive, seemed to join her. Even the wind stopped. Even the stars looked away. Nature itself was celebrating her triumph. The next morning, villagers found footprints by the edge of Lake Chernoye. They were Dmitry's, clear, undisturbed, leading straight into the water, but none coming back. They called his name, they searched, but only silence answered. His body was never found. The lake remained still, black, cold, unchanged. But the villagers knew. Another soul was trapped beneath, claimed by a curse that never ends. And every night, the screams return, echoing from the dark waters, reminding everyone. The Rusalka is still there, and she's still hungry.